It is Tuesday, all you mentees. That means it's time for your weekly overview of collected editions from Marvel Comics. This is the Uncanny Omar from Near Mint Condition, the home of collected editions. So, let's get this party started. Before going any further, I do want to thank David Gabriel and the fine folks at Marvel for sending us advanced copies of these trades and epic collections and Marvel Masterworks and a Marvelverse book. All these books are due out in the direct market and book market on April 18th and 19th, depending on where you get your books. Now, every week I do this, and I put timestamps in the description of the video so you can jump around. Uncanny Omar Talk Pretty one day. Jump around in case you're just interested in a couple titles or you don't want any kind of spoilers for anything inside of the book. So we've got a couple of epics, one being a reprint. We've got a Marvel Masterworks, one of these new big collections that kind of have taken over the complete collections, a Marvelverse book, an anthology, and the brand new Predator book. And one of these books is going to end up with the near mint condition seal of approval. I did it there, but maybe there or there. Anyway, so let's go ahead and get started. Smash that like button, please. I forgot to mention that. Why do I forget to mention that? Should be like the first thing. Smash that like button, subscribe, ring that bell for notifications. All right. Let's go ahead and start with Rocket and Groot. Marvelverse, Rocket and Groot. It's so weird that since the DNA era of Guardians of the Galaxy, it's like these characters are always hand in hand. You can't say one without the other. Even though Groot had his own series and so did Rocket. But these are the Marvelverse books. They're a little bit smaller, they're digest size than your standard size trade paperbacks. I always like to do a size comparison for people that don't know exactly what digest size means. And it's also my way of sneaking in an early look at some of the... Man, I was about to talk about this one. Some of the epics coming up. But here we have the latest Marvelverse book. This is a great way to get people caught up on these characters. And this is Rocket and Groot. Here's what it collects. So Incredible Hulk 271, that's of course the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon. Free Comic Book Day 2014, Rocket Raccoon. Guardians of the Galaxy Dream On. Rocket Raccoon 5, Groot number 6, Rocket and Groot number 4, and A Year of Marvel's The Unbeatable. Now, you may notice that all of these are written by different creators, drawn by different people. So we kick it off with the first appearance of Rocket Raccoon in the pages of the Incredible Hulk 271, written by Bill Mantlo, drawn by Sal Buscema. Then he had his own little ongoing, or not ongoing, but a mini-series. This showcases the character of Rocket appearing here with Hulk, teaming up to get out of this world. Then we have, this is the cover. So the covers are all collected, they're all intact. Right here, this is the Scotty Young cover from the Free Comic Book Day. And they kind of give you a little synopsis as to what to expect in each of these chapters. Rocket Raccoon is a wanted mammal, and he's out to clear his bounty by any means necessary. So the idea behind these is to kind of give you a little catch-up as to who these characters are, their personalities, some of the adventures they've been in, and some stories that may impact them in a way that kind of sets up the status quo of where they recently, or where they are now in Marvel Comics continuity. So this one's showcasing both Rocket and Groot. Like I said, it's like they go hand in hand. There are extras in the back. Not always, but sometimes there are extras, like variant covers. Is that a Rob Liefeld? Man, he looks vicious. This one here is 120 pages, and like all the other Marvelverse books, retails for $9.99. As you can see, they've started a library of these. And speaking of library, I love putting these books in small libraries, or giving them away to viewers that have kids, because I think it's a great way to get kids to read comics. Trials of X, Volume 8, the anthology continues. There's so much to talk about in this one, but because of the no spoiler clause that I have, it's an unwritten law, I can't talk much about some of the stories collected in here. I can, however, talk about one that I've talked about for a while now. It doesn't spoil much of anything. So this collects Excalibur 25. It's the penultimate issue that wraps up Marcus Toe and Teenie Howard's run on Excalibur. And it's pretty much getting all the mutants out of Otherworld. That's all I will say about that. It also collects Sword number 9 and X-Men, the new X-Men series, the one by Jerry Duggan, number 5. That one's it's got a funny title. Don't Piss Polaris Off, I believe. And again, I can't talk about it without going into much spoilers, but this is what the artwork looks like. And it collects Sword number 9, as well as X-Force 25 and 26. And that's what I'm mainly here to talk about, is these issues of X-Force. So, on my live streams and on my videos, I've talked about Benjamin Percy's run on X-Force. I've said, man, it's been fun. You know, it starts off great. And it kind of dips down a little bit. Then it goes good again, and then it takes a dip. And then we get to this adamantium surfboard. And I've mentioned this on my live streams, and I've mentioned them when doing overviews of books or whenever I'm asked what do I think about Benjamin Percy's series because of Ghost Rider. People were asking me what I think about it. I'm like, oh, it started off great, but then sometimes it takes a dip. But no, Ghost Rider was still solid all through. But yes, this is the X-Force issues where Wolverine gets an adamantium surfboard. And he's just chilling because it's after some big event. And he's just surfing, which I didn't even know he was a fan of. Now, there are a couple of things that happen through here. There's one big breakup. Wolverine meets a new friend. Her name is Pike. Now, of course, has Wolverine met anybody the first time around? And how has he not learned his lesson not to trust everybody? Because Pike and her friends are up to no good. They're about to steal some babies from Krakoa. So it's up to Wolverine and his adamantium surf. No, it's up to the X-Force to go get the babies back. But I did want to point that's the issue I was talking about. When people are like, are you saying that he's surfing? I'm saying he's surfing. All right, let's look at the Sword issue. This is Sword number 9. This is a cool issue because to me, this is a no-holds-barred fight with the Imperial Guard versus the Lethal Legion. Here's a quick little recap, or I'm sorry, introduction as to who these characters are, and they are just wiping the floor with the Elite Guard. This is the Imperial Guard, the strongest of the strong out there for the Shi'ar Empire, and Sword is caught in the middle. I believe I've talked about that in the trade paperbacks for Sword. And let's look at the extras in the back. So here's some extras, like a fastball special extra, nice touch, and a Sword variant. This book has 136 pages and retails for $19.99. Predator. This is by Ed Brisson, Kev Walker, Frank D'Amarta. And this is the most recent mini-series. I don't think it's an ongoing. Collecting Predator, the 2022 series 1 through 6. So all the first 6 issues are collected in here, or all 6 issues are collected in here. This is a really interesting story because here's a timeline. 1987, of course, Predator 1. 1997, Predator 2. Very underrated flick. I know, that's just the way I feel. And then we have the other Predator movies are part of continuity, some of them. Kev Walker. I've been a huge fan of Kev Walker's since he did, long before he was doing Thunderbolts or Avengers, what was it called? Not Avengers Academy, Avengers Arena. But I found out that he had done a lot of Judge Dredd too. He's a Marvel UK artist, and he is solid. I'm loving the fact that they're just putting him on so many books. And Predator is no exception, because I knew he would be great. He's got this dark and gritty type of art style. With D'Amarta's colors, it's a little different though. It looks a little polished, a little more slick, but that's just my 2 cents. So we meet this character of Theta. She is out here. This is, by the way, a flashback. It starts off in the year 2056 with this young lady that is hunting a specific predator. And she's like, damn it, this isn't the one. This one has all 4 mandibles. So she's looking for a specific predator because of this flashback. So in this flashback, we see that her parents are coming to get her. She's all part of this expedition. And then her dad gets shot and killed within the first few pages. Then we go back to present day where she's hunting the predator. And this is where you find out that this isn't the right one. And then you go back to the ship. And the ship and her are really close together. The ship feels like the secondary character in this, and you get to find out why later on. But you see that she's got a collection of Predator helmets already, so this is not her first kill. She is after a specific Predator. You get to see alien races, and you get to see a flashback. And this, I'm not sure if you noticed or not, is parental advisory, mainly due to the violence and some of the language, but it's basically the language or the violence in here. So this particular predator that she's hunting is the predator that killed her mom and dad. So now Theta is out for revenge, and it's taking everything of her to go after this predator, and she has knocked out other predators left and right in different planets. So she is hunting one specific one. Does she get to meet this predator, or does it end on a cliffhanger? That is up to you to figure out. Love that Arthur Adams cover, which is what they use here. Very nice. So the covers are all collected with no, let me see if there's no spoiler in the end of issue 1. Nope, no spoiler. So they're collected like this. They're textless covers, and there's the issue number. And all the way in the back are other variant. All the way in the back are variant covers, including that actually adorable Scotty Young variant cover. Sadly, these are thumbnails. Oh, that's good. These are thumbnail covers. There's not really any, except for this one here, full splash pages. So I was hoping to see some more. I want to see a continuation of the characters and stories collected in here, because I think there's a lot more to explore. But this is where it ends for now. So let me know in the comments, is there another miniseries, or was this an ongoing? This one here retails for $19.99, and it has 144 pages. Guardians of the Galaxy by Al Ewing. Now, it seems like Marvel, well, we know that they're doing away with the complete collections, and we're focusing on modern collections, or modern epic collections, and sagas. But then there are books like this, or like this, that don't really have a complete collection, but we know this is it. I mean, this book is just as fat as this Cosmic Ghost Rider. Both of these trade paperbacks. I was really hoping that they would do an omnibus or oversized hardcover of this, but this is the route we're going to go, and I will take this in any kind of way. So this has been available before in a series of trade paperbacks. However, this collects a little more and a little less, and I'll talk about that here in a second. But these 3 trades, if you have these, are all collected in this big fat trade paperback here. So let's just put these to the side right now and focus on this right here. Star-Lord, what is he in the throne of? Now, this book does retail kind of like an epic. It retails for $49.99, and it has 576 pages. And it collects Guardians of the Galaxy 1 through 18, the 2020 series from Al Ewing, and annual number 1. But it also contains Rocket. So it contains the Rocket 6-issue series that Al Ewing wrote. Now you'll notice here that Juan Cabal is the artist on both issues 9 through 12 and 1 through 5. Marcio Takara does the artwork in 6 through 8, and Juan Freire is the artist on 13 through 18. And Flaviano is the artist on the annual. So those trade paperbacks I just showed do not contain the 6 issues of Rocket. Now, Rocket sets up a new character that plays an important part in the first arc of Guardians of the Galaxy. But it's also the return of Techneg. Like, I wasn't expecting Gatecrasher and Technet should show up through here. I hadn't read this. Honestly, I've forgotten about it. So it was a nice surprise to have this included in here. Then we get to the main course. Then we get to the Guardians of the Galaxy issue. So let's go ahead and get there, because this sets up Guardians of the Galaxy and it introduces to a new villain. Alright, so we kick it off with Guardians of the Galaxy number 1. Now, on my Saturday stream, people asked, was there anything to read before here? Some people, like my buddy Roberto Rodriguez, said he didn't need to read anything. He was fine. He hadn't read anything before this. I would at least read, and I mean at the very least, the Donny Cates run of Guardians of the Galaxy, because that kind of gives you a status quo as to where some of these characters are going to be during this. But there's another book that, as I reread this, that I thought of that you kind of need to... No, you do need to read if you want to know everything, because the first story arc shows these characters come back, and you're like, what the hell are going on with the Greek gods? Well, the Greek gods last appeared in Avengers No Way Home, which is the series that Al Ewing helped co-write. And something happened there where they're changed, and they show back up here in a different way. So that's kind of what sets off the first story arc. You know, this is the beginning of the new Guardians of the Galaxy that are split up into 2 different groups. And I love that about this. There is a death in the first story arc that kind of surprised me, but then again, it's comics, so you never know how long that's going to be. And you never know where the story's going to take you. But my favorite thing about this is how much that Al Ewing is able to pull from everything. From Jim Valentino's run of Guardians of the Galaxy, from Bendis's run, from Jerry Duggan's run, from I almost said Al Ewing, Donny Cates' run, from the classic stuff, and give you this big, immense team, and it still feels like something new. I think this is one of the best stories out there that he did. And I know that Immortal Hulk put his name out there for a lot of people, and I think a lot of people followed his Loki Agent of Asgard, but this right here should not go overlooked. This right here should not be one of these books that nobody's talking about. It's one of the best Guardians of the Galaxy takes. I haven't enjoyed Guardians of the Galaxy this much since the DNA era. Jerry Duggan's had his ups and downs. I thought Donny Cates had a good start, but it just didn't last long for me to start building a trust in these characters again. Bendis' run, well, Bendis did, what Bendis does best. He reintroduces these characters to a brand new audience, so it's a fresh take. It's not the Guardians that I remembered. These Guardians felt a lot more like going back home to that DNA era, and that's why this book right here gets the Near Mint Condition seal of approval this week. Look, I already said the seal of approval. You don't have to watch the rest of the video. Yes, you do. Of course you do. Some of the variant covers are collected on the opposite side of the standard edition cover. Now, I will say it is lacking just a couple of things, and that is in this book right here, The Last Annihilation. Now, the Guardians of the Galaxy stuff is all collected in here, but I would have loved to have seen the sword issues collected in here that tie in. So if you want everything as far as like the last story arc that's collected in here, issues 16 through 18 is called The Last Annihilation. This right here has The Last Annihilation, Wiccan, and Hulkling, and it also has Wakanda and Sword number 7. I wish those issues were collected in here, but we're already looking at a book that has 576 pages, so I completely understand why they did not collect it in here. It would have been just ridiculous. Now let's look and see if we still have extras in the back. By the way, the annual is what wraps this book up, and the annual is like it's more of a Hercules type of story. So we do have variants back here, all the way in the back. They're thumbnails, but the splash page variants are on the opposite side of the standard edition trade paperbacks. Sorry, it's been a long day. I've been recording a lot of videos. I just got done with a live stream that was almost 3 hours long, and I still have to pack. So forgive me. But this one's 576 pages, seal of approval, $49.99, and that is Guardians of the Galaxy by Al Ewing. Let's check out those spines. It has come to be that moment of the episode or segment, where I hold up all the spines together of the books coming out this week and remind people to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring that bell for notifications. All that does help with our YouTube algorithm and our channel keep growing. So here's all the spines of the books. There we go. Now, let's continue with the overview. Alright, let's continue these overviews. So we have Iron Man. This is the latest epic, but it's also a reprint. So this is volume number 15 from 1989 to 1990. And boy, what a time this was. 245 to 257 is collected in here. Now, there's also a couple of other things. Wanted to compare it to the previous printing right here. This one was printed in America, and this new printing was printed in Canada. But not sure if you can tell, the original printing is a little bit thicker, and it's here. Let me just kind of show it. Like it's a little bit thicker than this one, and I think that has to do with the paper stock. So I will do a comparison here in a little bit of the paper quality. But first, let's go back to this and talk about what is in here. What are the stories that make this up? So here are all the creators, and holy crap, there are a lot of different creators, because I feel like towards the last 2/3 of this, It's a bunch of fill-in issues. But here we have Iron Man 245 Dreadnought Destruction. So now we have Paul Smith. It's all you can always tell Paul Smith's smooth artwork, very slim bodies, and written by David Michelinie. So this is the tail end of the David Michelinie and Bob Layton era of Iron Man. So issue 245 to 257, as I've mentioned, and annuals 10 and 11, and then material from Captain America annual number 9. This printing is $44.99, and it has 472 pages. So we find Tony. He's still strapped to a wheelchair because of some unfortunate circumstance that happened in the previous Epic collection, where he can't get out of this wheelchair. However, he can still don the armor and do Iron Man things. So this is the era where he feels like, why even bother, being Tony Stark? I prefer to be Iron Man. I prefer to be flying around and fighting instead of just being stuck here. And this is where you're going to find the Atlantis Attacks annual, which a very big important part happens in here. This is actually drawn by Paul Smith as well, and written by David Michelinie. And of course, because this is the Iron Man epic, the entire annual is collected in here. So all the backup stories, including one of my favorites, which is Can You Top This? It's where a bunch of villains, including some old ones that we haven't seen for a while, are talking about how they've confronted Iron Man in the past. And we have some beautiful Gene Colan artwork in here. We have different artists just doing splash pages between the confrontations of Iron Man and these characters. I thought that was a really interesting story. There's a Tuma, and then of course you have the continuing origin of the Serpent Crown. Then we go on with the story again, Iron Man or Tony Stark stuck in a wheelchair and then trying to escape by jumping into this iron suit. Now, this is where things get a little bit confusing because we have the character of Mask back. This is where Hulk teams up with him, but it's not the same character. So I say it gets a little bit confusing because when Bob Layton and David Michelinie leave the book, they kind of leave some things unanswered. Now, of course, if you're reading Iron Man these days, you know that Tony Stark is not stuck in a wheelchair, that somehow he got his use of his legs back. And you can find out how by reading this book. All right, let's get to what this book is actually called, which, funny enough, he's only in 2 issues, and that is Doom. So it's that return to the previous classic issue 150 of the big fight where they travel in time, but they travel to the past with Doom. And this time around, Iron Man travels to the future with Doom, where he meets somebody that you may be familiar with. This character that could be Arno Stark, the Iron Man of 2020. But there might be a little bit of twist with that character. But it definitely looks like Iron Man 2020, which is so strange to say considering the year we're in. But yes, this does feature the big fight with Doom. I actually enjoy the ending to this one. I thought the ending was okay. That's a cool little twist. And then we get the Acts of Vengeance crossover stories with the Chemistro and the Wrecking, or not the Wrecking Crew, but just the Wrecker. These are written by Dwayne McDuffie. So it's a different writer coming in. And then the rest of this issue does feel like it's a bunch of fill-in issues. Bob Layton comes in and becomes the regular writer for a while. We get the promise of the return of John Romita Jr. We have a new Spy Master, so Taskmaster is training all these new people to go after Iron Man. We do have a new Spy Master. This is a really interesting and really weird story where their consciousness switch between Iron Man and the Crimson Dynamo. So yeah, there's this really weird scene where Tony Stark is with this Russian lady and he can't understand a word she's saying, but somehow he's still able to charm her. Then we get the return of John Romita Jr. So John Romita Jr. stepping in, Bob Layton writing the stories, and this is kind of like a wrap up to the previous run that happened before the David Michelinie and Bob Layton run 2. There's the Captain America Terminus Factor story arc, which just features the Terminus Factor part and then the Terminus Factor Part 2 of 5 in Iron Man. You can see You Are Here. It all started in Captain America Annual 9, but it doesn't contain the rest of the story. So, ups and downs with this era for sure. Let's look at the extras. All those extras for the annual are in here, though. Extras in the back. damage control files there. And unused cover, original artwork. The introduction here by Scott Benson for the Iron Man vs. Doctor Doom trade paperback, which collected 149 and 150 and 249 and 250. And I used to have that. And then this cover right here. So this book has 472 pages. Again, it is $44.99. The previous printing was $39.99, but it's been years. And as I mentioned, it's thicker. I'm sure you can probably tell here. Now, something you may have noticed is that the cover doesn't cover all of the book. Just, it goes right here. I mean, we're almost there. Now, let's look inside here, because I do want to see. This is definitely the old paper stock, the American paper stock. Let's see how well the Canadian thinner paper stock does against this, to see if there's bleed through. And, yeah, it looks about the same. Colors. Actually, they're a little more vibrant in the new printing. Just a little bit. But I mainly wanted to showcase the light colors. But there's no bleed through, really. I mean, it looks about the same. Let me see if I can find just the way the colors look, particularly in this issue right here, 247, where the scans, to me, looked a little rough. Not horrible or anything, but they looked a little rush. And they do show up in the original printing, too. But I think because of the paper stock, they show up a little more here. See, like, on the shadows and the darker colors, like Hulk right here. But I think this is a good issue to look at a bunch of whites. And yeah, I can actually prefer the colors here in the new printing a little bit more. And as far as bleed through, there's really no difference. Just the colors are just a tad bit different. And hey, you save a little bit of room with the new printing because it's slimmer. But I guess it's all a personal choice. Now, let's continue with the Incredible Hulk Epic Collection, The Lone and Level Sands, Volume 24 of The Incredible Hulk, and also the goodbye to Peter David's run of Hulk. Now, he does come back later on, and who knows how those will be collected in modern Epic collections, maybe. But this does end the Incredible Hulk and Peter David's journey. Now, he left on his own accord. He wasn't angry or anything. He didn't get booted out by the editors. He decided it was time to go. And he ends, to me, on one of the biggest high notes. I love the final issue that he wrote in here. I thought it was really powerful. It was a little bit unsettling. It was sad. It was beautiful. And, yeah, it was everything that I wanted. Adam Kubert doing the artwork. There is a wonderful issue in here that has this one right here. This one is penciled and inked as well by Joe Kubert. So you have Adam Kubert doing some of the artwork in here with Mark Farmer on inks. And then you have Joe doing some of the artwork with his own inks on the book. And I thought it worked so well for both of them working together on a book, father and son. Because, Joe still had this classic style that Adam and Andy adopted. And anybody that had gone to the Kubert art school, it's just a very unique style. And you can always kind of tell who the graduates are. Or maybe it's just me. I like to sit around and see who they are. But we are here to talk about what else is collected in here. Because, like I said, this ends Peter David's run on Hulk. And I'm not even going to give away what exactly happens. But let's go on with the Incredible Hulk and Submariner annual. I haven't even talked about what's collected in here. So this collects Incredible Hulk 460 to 474. Hulk and Submariner Annual 98, but also X-Man and Hulk Annual 98. The book has 464 pages and retails for $44.99. And this is a really interesting place for this, but I can't imagine this fitting anywhere else because something horrible has just happened in Hulk's life. And the immediate thing that's collected next to this, or next to that, is this annual, where he's dealing with these things. And then, of course, Namor's people are dealing with their own issue, dying because of this disease. And then we get a new team. We get the team of... Oh, no, actually, we get the annual. Sorry. This is the second annual where he's dealing with issues, and he has to fight not only X-Man, but Thanos. So, after this is where we get the new creative team of Joe Casey and Javier Pulido doing the artwork. So let me skip a little bit here. This kind of gives you a sort of a new status quo for the character of Bruce Banner and the Hulk. It feels like it's going back to the older days where Bruce Banner is on the run from the military and from everyone else, trying to get rid of the Hulk persona. Thunderbolt Ross is having nightmares and he's going after Bruce because he blames Bruce for said nightmares. Javier Pulido's artwork is very. It looks a little rushed, and I can see why people weren't fans of it. There are a couple fill-in issues, though, by Ed McGuinness. This is with the Circus of Crime people, which takes our characters back to Vegas. You know, it had to have been tough to follow in the footsteps of Peter David. I can't imagine, like, somebody, an editor, coming up to me and going, hey, Peter David's leaving this book. He's been on it for years. You want to take over? You know, do something neat with it? Do something interesting with it? Like, what do you even do? So, I do like the way that Joe Casey went with the character. Because even if you're wrapping up some of the things that happened in the previous run, you still have to do your own thing. So it's almost like he took it back to the basics, you know, the complexity and the dissociative identity disorder, that's still there, but we're focusing more on monster smashing things. And he ties it back to a couple of Silver Age stories, bringing back characters like the Amphibian, who we haven't seen in years. And Javier Pulido, again's artwork looks a little bit rushed, but to me kind of reminded me of like a cartoonier Ron Garney. And then he wraps it up with this really cosmic story where a bunch of characters, including the Watcher, shows up. Matter of fact, the Watcher plays a big important part in the final story. And then the book gets rebooted with a brand new #1, which introduces us to the John Byrne and Ron Garney era. So this stuff is going to be collected in that omnibus. And we know that it's going to have the Joe Casey run and the John Byrne run together, which feels like a big gap filler. Now let's look at the extras here. So there's a preview caution right here. An interview with Peter David. Talk about his run on the book. Some internal artwork, including original art for the cover. Hulk, Beauty, and the Behemoth. Trade paperback, collecting some of the stories in here. And the goodbye letter from Peter David. That I would not read until you've read all this, because it will spoil what happens in the last issue, or the last of his run. Last, but certainly not least, is the latest Marvel Masterworks. And that is Daredevil, Volume 17. So we are wrapping up the phenomenal Frank Miller era of Daredevil. These, as always, come with a dust jacket, and we have the faux leather look to this. Let's take it out of this dust jacket. Here's what the flaps look like. And this is, of course, the standard edition cover. Alright, so in case you haven't read Frank Miller's era before, this is the last part of his original run. Then he comes back again for something called Born Again, which is, chef's kiss. But very important, if you've not read it, maybe skip this overview. I don't like telling people to skip my videos, of course, but I don't want to spoil this for anybody, because even flipping through here, you might see something going, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. And I'll do a comparison really quick here to the omnibus in a second. So you do have Frank Miller writing the whole thing, doing the breakdowns, with the exception of actually penciling the final issue that he did, with Terry Austin on inks on that one. It looks, actually, that one always reminded me of Barry Windsor Smith on art. Klaus Janson, of course, applying the penciled and finished art. Roger McKenzie, I didn't know until I read this why he was credited as the co-writer of issue 183. And that's because it was a plot from before that. They were running slow on time, and this is, of course, Ralph Macchio's introduction explains all this. They were running behind, so the Comics Code wouldn't let them do. It was a drug abuse issue that featured kids, so then they talked the Comics Code to let them do it, and then Frank Miller tweaked some things and redrew a couple of issues, or a couple of pages, and there we go. And it is the big encounter between Punisher and Daredevil. As a matter of fact, it has a very iconic cover. I love that cover. Holy crap, just shoots him in the gut. Beautiful artwork in here. And again, Roger McKenzie credited as the writer. And I didn't know why until this particular read-through, because I have never heard that story. So this wraps up the era of Daredevil. He is losing it. I mean, this man without fear is losing his mind because he's lost something important to him. And he's treating his friends and colleagues like crap. So he's spiraling down, and there's nothing that can save him, maybe, except for a reunion that's about to happen. You have the return of Stiltman. Just look at that. It looks like just a man in desperation. But because of the cover, I'm sure you already know that Natasha Romanoff shows back up in his life. And she has a brand new costume. So just in time to save him from himself is Natasha. Now let's skip this issue in full and get to the final issue. This I just want to show a couple pages here. This one always reminded me a little bit of Barry Windsor Smith's artwork, but just because of the Terry Austin inks. Beautiful, beautiful restoration. So before I go any further, let's actually go back towards the beginning so I can do just a little comparison. A little bit like the Walter Simonson omnibus of Thor, they did a little bit of like modernization on the colors. Now some people may not have noticed this, but this is truer to the original colors of the comic book. This is the way that you remember it, and this is the way that it's been collected in omnibus format since it's been printed in omnibus format. It was something that they were trying, not like the Absolute Swamp Thing, Alan Moore's Absolute Swamp Thing, but you can definitely tell the difference, especially when you go back to the original comic book colors from here. That's why a lot of people prefer this, the Masterwork, because that's the way they remember it. Let me just highlight just a couple more pages, and Corey's team just does a phenomenal job of restoration. Just minute details, my gosh, the waves and the ladder, man, the cross-hatching of the lines right here. Beautiful restoration. So again, true to the comic colors, and this is a little bit of the updated, not really fully restored, but also not reimagined. So I guess just a little bit of updated colors. Even the covers also had a little bit of that modernization on the color, where we go back to the original colors here. And just one more page for comparison. All right, that's it. That, as they say, is that. By the way, I was using my original printing, but the masters are identical to the masters that they've used since this right here. So every reprint of the omnibus has used the same colors since these particular scans. This is newly restored artwork that looks absolutely stunning. Now, that, as they say, is that. If you're interested in purchasing any of these books, don't forget to check out our sponsor, CheapGraphicNovels.com, your online home for graphic novels and collected editions up to 50% off cover price. They have excellent shipping and prompt and helpful service. Check out their bargain deals for up to 90% off cover price. And don't forget that CGN also takes pre-orders. That way you don't miss out on the hottest releases. And they are currently running a special promotion for you Minties. If you're a first-time customer, after receiving your order confirmation email, reply back to that email and let them know Near Mint Condition sent you their way. They will then apply a free shipping promotional credit to your next order in the US. Cheap Graphic Novels, your source for the hottest books with the kind of deep discount, quality shipping, and customer service that will keep you coming back for more. And that was the content and page count of each of these collections. Let me know in the comments down below how you're collecting these particular series, whether it's through Epics or Omnis, or whether it's through Marvel Masterworks, or you're hoping that one day they'll give us a Predator Modern Era collection in omnibus format, or you're hoping one day we get this epic of the Michelini Layton return in omnibus format. If you have any questions, leave them down below. Don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe if you haven't subscribed yet. Everyone, stay healthy and safe out there. Much love.